One of my favorite authors is Jim Collins. Has written a number of best-selling books. His favorite best-selling, his probably most popular book is a book called Good to Great. And your pre-reading for today was a Harvard Business Review article that was written by Jim Collins. So the brutal fact. So Jim Collins wrote this book called Good to Great, and he was curious about how some companies are good companies and they find a way to become great, but most companies never do. Most companies, they're good and they just stay good. They never become great. So Collins was curious about why that is, why some companies are able to achieve greatness. So he studied great companies. He looked at what makes for a great company. He ended up documenting about a dozen different companies that became great. And by great, it meant number one, they had above average profitability, 3 to 5 times higher than the industry average. And they were able to maintain that over a long period of time, like 20 years. So high return on investment over a long period of time, great company. So then when he studied these great companies, he looked to see what do they have in common? What do they share? And he found that they shared quite a bit, these great companies. But one thing that they all shared, all of the great companies, is that they all asked almost the exact same question in the beginning of their journey towards greatness. They all asked almost the exact same question. And that question was, what is the brutal fact of our current reality? What is the brutal fact of our current reality? Translated, what's the one thing that's preventing this company from becoming great? What's the one thing that's preventing this company from getting better? What's the brutal fact of our current reality? So as an example, he shares in the book a company called, you probably know this company, Kimberly-Clark, big paper products company, Kimberly-Clark. They were one of the great companies that he profiled in his book. And Kimberly-Clark back in the 1970s, early 80s, had 17 manufacturing facilities around the world. And in these manufacturing facilities, they took in trees, essentially, took in pulp, and they created paper towels and Kleenex and paper plates, paper products, starting with a tree and ending up with a consumer product. 17 manufacturing facilities. So Collins talks about in a key executive meeting they had, a question came up, hey, how can we get better? How can we become great? And one of the executives, young executives, raised his hand and said, I got an idea. We're not very good at making things. We're not very good at manufacturing. We're really good at selling consumer products. We're not very good at making consumer products. He said, why don't we close or sell all the manufacturing facilities and let's focus on what we do best, selling consumer products. Let's get rid of the 17 manufacturing facilities. We can imagine there was a hush that came over the room. Get rid of manufacturing facilities? Have you lost your mind? That's what we do. We make paper products. Well, ultimately, that's what they decided to do. They decided to close down their manufacturing facilities, outsource their manufacturing. And as a result of that decision and addressing that brutal fact, they went from being a good company to becoming a great company. What is the brutal fact of your current reality? What's the one thing that's preventing your company from becoming great? So I would like for each of you to answer that same question in the box that you have there on the page in your workbook. It says, my brutal fact. I want you to state this as a statement, as a headline, like on the front page of the Houston Chronicle. Headline, 3 to 5 words. Our brutal fact is fill in the blank. Okay? What is the brutal fact of your current reality? I'll give you a minute to think about that and then jot it down. My brutal fact. The one thing that's preventing your company from becoming a great company.